The Nintendo Switch is an all-time best-selling console, so naturally the above-average-sized den got a little bit cocky when it came to the Switch 2 by jacking the prices up and implementing all kinds of anti-consumer policies. And naturally, this led to a lot of people on the internet swearing they were gonna outright boycott the new console altogether. Normally, whenever Nintendo gets cocky, their business tanks, so a lot of people thought that this time would be no different, especially with threats of boycotts all over the place. But despite all this being stacked against the below-oversized den's favor, the Switch 2 ended up selling way more than its big bro did at the same time in its life cycle. So what exactly went wrong? Well, sit back in your favorite throne made entirely of expired coupons, and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, so there's actually a lot of reasons why the Switch 2 boycott's utterly failing as bad as it is, and honestly, I'm not really sure which one's the biggest reason, but the one that I feel like is most worth mentioning is the fact that the internet's not real life. Look, I know it's easy to get consumed with the idea that the online opinion represents the majority, and I'm not even trying to sound like a sarcastic dick or anything right now either. Honestly, sometimes I can forget that too, even. But just because like 50,000-ish people on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter are furious over Nintendo's price increases, the fact is that the average person just doesn't keep up with online opinions. And even with about 30 to 50% of the population in developed countries being the types to passively keep up with things on the internet every now and then, everybody's not exactly keeping up with everything necessarily. Like, I'm online more than the average person is, and even I only keep up with gaming and wrestling. I mean, I've been skateboarding multiple times almost every week for about a quarter of a century now, and I even run a skateboarding channel, but honestly, I never check the Slap forum or like the Thrasher website to keep up with the industry news. I have like a rough idea of what's going on, but I don't really care. And honestly, I think this is how the average person who plays video games feels about gaming. The average person will obviously watch game trailers every now and then if it's something they really like, but I don't think a lot of gamers watch daily YouTube videos to keep up with everything. Like, more people are gaming now than ever before, but the same thing could be said about movies and TV shows. But the average person isn't exactly checking websites every day to see what Avatar 3 might be about. Over 150 million Switches have been sold so far, but to be fair, a lot of those were probably people buying it twice. But out of the 100 million plus people who bought the first Switch, most of them probably have no idea just how mad the internet really is about the price increase. And far less have any idea the games aren't even on a lot of the actual cartridges, or that your console could be bricked if you hack it or buy a used game that was hacked at one point. Obviously, most people probably don't like the price without having to go on the internet to feel this way, but still though, Nintendo easily has the strongest first-party gaming IPs in the world, so if there's only one way to play the newest Nintendo games, many people feel like they have to buy the Switch 2. Sure, Nintendo's home consoles have done poorly in the past when the company got cocky, but even at their worst, Nintendo's handhelds have never not done well, which is what the Switch 1 and 2 are at the end of the day. Handhelds. Not only that, but if Nintendo consoles were underwhelming in the past, and their handheld games usually still provided the same thing that everybody felt like they needed. They might have been shorter games with some compromises given that there were handhelds, but they still did provide people their needs. These days, though, there's only one place to get new Nintendo games, and that's the Switch 2. They're not divided up between two different platforms, one being cheaper than the other. It's all just in one place now. I go into a lot more detail on this in a separate video called Why It's Impossible for the Nintendo Switch 2 to fail even if you want it to, though. But it's not just the casual, non-internet savvy gamers caving, though. No, despite the fact that many people said they'd boycott the Switch 2, but a lot of people saw Donkey Kong Bonanza or even Mario Kart 8 3, aka Mario Kart World, it just couldn't resist buying a Switch 2. Honestly, I think a lot of the complaining online was really just people trying to scare Nintendo into thinking they made a huge mistake when they knew damn well that they'd just buy a Switch 2 anyway. And even all you who are still standing firm in your boycott, we all know that most of you are probably gonna cave later on if you haven't already. Hell, I'd bet some of you are probably gonna comment about how you really mean it, but, like, come on, most of you are gonna cave, we all know it. If you do stand firm in your boycott, honestly, I respect you. I'm not trying to say you're an idiot or anything like that. As for me, though, I never said I'd boycott it in the first place. In fact, I got one at launch. Now, do I like the increased price? Of course not, but I'm not trying to miss all the Nintendo games coming out over the next 5 to 7 years, and I never pretended I would, unlike some of the millions of these people who are in these record-breaking numbers. As for the game prices, though, I swear to God I'm not gonna pay $80 for anything Nintendo puts out. Some kind of an epic 3D Mario or Zelda game? Fine. Random 2D Yoshi platformer? Definitely not, and I've literally played every single one of them up until this point. A lot of people act so surprised that the boycott failed so miserably, but you want to know another reason why I wasn't surprised at all? Because last time the internet said they were going to boycott something, literally nobody on Earth kept their word except for me. And I'm talking, of course, about the good old-fashioned National Dex controversy with Pokemon. A boycott that failed so hard that it's completely necessary for me to explain it right now since most people watching probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Short story even shorter, Pokemon fans were mad when Sword and Shield looked like crap and excluded the national dex on the Switch, meaning that for the first time ever, there was a Pokemon game with missing Pokemon. And to this day, I'm probably the only person who actually held up their end of the bargain, because the Pokemon games on the Switch sold literally more than any other games in the entire franchise. So this of course taught Game Freak that they in fact do not have to try to make Pokemon games look good, nor do they have to have the national dex back. Had the Switch 2 boycott been a success, and Nintendo would have learned that they can't charge as much money as they were asking for, and that they can't jerk us around with policies that dictate nobody actually owns a Switch 2, but rather we're all just lucky Nintendo's allowing us to use their consoles. So given that the boycott failed, Nintendo's been taught that factually, fans find $450 to be irresistible for the Switch 2. And like, I paid for it, so I guess that applies to me too. I am roasting myself here. But if you bought a Switch 2, then you're literally admitting $450 is completely acceptable and I couldn't resist it. So yeah, basically this means we lost this round because of me, and honestly, you too. However, there is still at least a chance that we could teach Nintendo a lesson in game pricing, but so far, we haven't really had a chance to yet, in my opinion. Like, personally, I do not think Mario Kart World's an $80 game, but I got the bundle, so it was only $50 for me, and yeah, honestly, it is worth $50. Other than that, though, we still don't have any other games at the time of this recording that cost $80, so, like, there's really no way to stick it to Nintendo just yet. Like I said, I'm gonna cave for a real 3D Mario or 3D Zelda game, but I do wonder if people are really gonna pay $80 for a 10-hour long 2D Mario game, or like a new Punch-Out or something. Although, come to think of it, Tears of the Kingdom's $80, and I bet a lot of you bought that. Personally, though, I think what's gonna end up happening is people will pay the piper based on popularity over quality, but I guess time will tell. At the moment, Nintendo's in the phase of testing the waters of what they can get away with, and we're all basically frogs in boiling water. Right now, it's only gonna be $80 for, like, big games, but once we justify these titles at $80 in our heads, and eventually they're gonna start turning the heat up, and we'll be more open to paying $80 for, like, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker. Not me, but I do think a lot of people will. But by that point, I think it's gonna be too late to realize how hot the water's really gotten. After all, just look at the Xbox One's DRM policies. Everybody rightfully freaked out at the time, but these days, that's kind of the norm now. The reason why it backfired on Microsoft, though, is because they tried to throw everybody in lava when they really should have just put them in normal water and turned it up slowly over time. But anyway, that's all for today, but if you got a kick out of my incoherent rambling and disturbing imagery, though, then you should check out the video I made about why it's impossible for the Switch 2 to fail, but if you'll excuse me, though, I'm gonna go break a law. Which law? Let me know in the comments. Later!